How you doing, everybody? Matt here, Mariposa Springs Fuel Force and Transport. We got a package today. Should be a new knife in there, and I wanted to unbox it. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Well, can't cut straight. I'm looking at the camera. There should also be a new tripod in there for making some new videos. So that'll be handy. LT right. Cap part. Focus. It's got the burlap handle. Brother got this for me. Beautiful knife. Love it. Anyways, I've been seeing a lot about this knife. Fairly cheap purchase on Amazon. So fun stuff. Well, that would be the knife right there. And then that'd be the tripod. There's two things in this box, and look at the size of the box. That's a waste. Alright, like that, yep. New phone tripod for filming, hopefully. Hopefully it works good. Anyway, this knife, made in Ukraine. It is a BPS. It is a bushcraft / hunting knife. And I wanted to get this on film, so you guys are seeing it for the first time with me. Alright. We've got it very well packaged. Childproof. There's the knife. Mr. Rustford thinks it's his. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this out of here. Alright. I think that tripod's going to come in handy instead of doing this one-handed. Well, there went the sheath. Fairly nice leather sheath. I mean, decent fit finish, I guess. Riveted. Dangler. That would be a permanent dangler. I don't see any way you're taking that off there unless you cut the leather or remove that rivet. No exit hole, which I notice a lot of bushcraft knives sheaths, they don't have that hole at the bottom for letting things, you know, fall through, which is totally okay. I don't need it, but I do notice it on some of my more tactical knives. There is kind of like an escape route for water and stuff sometimes there in the bottom. Not always, just I've seen it on occasion, but stamped. It's fairly nice sheath. Probably put some open offs on that before I get to really using it. We're gonna get this plastic off here, this little thing. All right. Not entirely sure, but this is a walnut handle, I believe. I think so. Full tang. It looks to be roughly 3/16. I'm not sure what that is there in the hole, but in the lanyard hole. The handle is pretty crude. Not real smooth. It'll smooth out as you use it, obviously. Let's see if we can roll that. All right. Scandinavian grind. You got your knurling in the back for your thumb, so you got good grip and retention. There's a little bit of a belly in this knife, which is one of the things, I don't know what's going on with my focus, which is one of the things that intrigued me about this knife. A bushcraft knife with kind of like a belly, which is this little bit of an area right in here. And more, I've always found that knives that have that belly have really good cutting ability. I mean, it's fairly sharp out of the box. Let's see, we wipe some of that oil. This is carbon steel, high carbon steel, so they have good oil coating on it. Let's see if I can get this to focus. I don't know what's going on with the focus tonight. Let's see here. There we go. The light's not very good in this cabin. But I'm curious to see how this turns out. It's good 90-degree spine, good for, you know, your ferro rod or anything like that. The knurling's not overly sharp, but it's substantial. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a Scandinavian grind, so you know, just if you know anything about a Scandinavian grind, for the most part, they're fairly sharp out of the box. Now, I personally, because I'm a snob when it comes to sharpening my knives, would get all this oil off here, and I'll set that up there so it doesn't end up on a dog. Take it to my strop for, you know, 100 licks or better, and go from there. I've seen it on a couple of the websites and Facebook pages, so I'm not sure what their review of it is. I haven't watched any YouTube reviews of this. It looks like it's fairly well finished. I mean, you can see a little bit of the machine grinding marks in it. It's very pointy. I mean, comparatively speaking, that versus that's pretty pointy too. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's sharp. It'll go through something, but this is more like you would find on a hunting knife. Slight drop point, not a clip point, but a drop point. But what I am curious about with this knife is because of the belly and because of the angle of the sweep, how much of a pain is it going to be to sharpen this and keep it sharp? I can tell just by the way it's ground. You can see that it's thinner down here, thicker up in there, and then thinner towards the point again. Now I'm talking about the bevel. So I feel like even the natural grind of it is going to make it, I would say, a little bit more difficult to maintain a consistency. But because of the way that that's narrower down here, the bevel, and narrower at the point and thicker in the middle, is probably because they tried to maintain consistency when they ground it, which we're going to find out. I'm not even going to take Japanese water stones to this or nothing. All I'm going to do is wipe the oil off it I can tell, and I don't think you can pick it up on the camera just slightly if I can get it into my beard and get the light to shine just right on it, maybe. There is a slight, there it is in my mustache a little bit, a slight micro bevel on this knife. And that is probably just because the grinder that they used to sharpen this, they didn't take it all the way down to a burr. And that is good practice as far as I'm concerned, because then I can take, you don't, it doesn't show up with a rolled edge, doesn't show up with chips, doesn't show up with a bunch of other things that are going to make everybody angry. So that's, fairly good thinking on their part. Even my LT Wright, which I've sharpened quite a few times, you can tell, almost appears to have a micro bevel, but it does not. It does after you use it a little bit. You can actually see where this knife is dull. If you use like certain sections of it a little more than others, you can see where it almost is flat. That's how fine of an edge this is. And I'm sure with a little bit of stropping, and definitely with the Waterstones, you could get this to do the exact same thing. So I'm interested in this. I'm intrigued. The other thing I notice compared to this Kephart is where the bevel starts, where the grind starts. There's no gap, none. This one is a little bit proud. Hard to see. It's a little bit proud by maybe a 1/16 of an inch. And I wouldn't say worries me, because I'm pretty careful with my knives, but any slip, there's not as much of the hump there, like a blade guard type, as there is with this. Your finger sits right in there. It's good solid grip. If that's not a stabbing knife, I wouldn't stab with this one either. I don't want to stab anything if I can help it, but just thinking about it, you stick it into a piece of wood and your hand slips or something like that, you just want to be conscious of that. I mean, this is like basically a kitchen knife style handle, when it comes down to how it transitions from handle to blade. It's just not, there's just not a lot of protection there. And sometimes that's a good thing, because you want to choke up on your knife. You ever want to choke up on it? When you're skinning something out, or, you want to get right down on the point, cutting something, slicing something. You can kind of get your finger down in there like that. Where on this knife, on this LT Wright, it's a little bit thicker of a blade. It actually makes it easier to hold on to. Your finger almost naturally locks into that. And it just gives you that little bit more steady protection, where that finger is going to want to ride off to the side the way that's shaped than it would be to come up onto the cutting edge. So, like I said, with this, I even may consider taking it down in here, just in the wood, in the scales, so that finger, rides in there a little bit nicer. Now, I have fairly big hands. This is not a very big knife. In comparison, I would say they're almost exactly the same. Very, very, very close. If anything, the BPS is just a slight bit longer by, sorry about the shadow, maybe 1/4 of an inch. just where that is there. This LT Right, I do not really use this lanyard. That lanyard is on there basically so if I get myself into a situation, I can dummy cord. In that way, if anything ever happened, I would still have my knife if it ever decided to fall out of the sheath. I keep it hung up here next to the bed, just on a nail. But as far as dummy cording, I really need to do something with this ferro rod. It only has a split ring in it at the current moment. The one that cheaper one on there, and I didn't like it. It was a little bit too soft and it was wearing out real fast. It had a piece of like bungee on it, so I could wrap it down and lock it onto itself. And the drilled hole on that is not quite big enough to do that, but in combination with the split ring, I might be able to figure something out. But technically, that's what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to probably do the exact same thing. I'll put a lanyard through there. Now, if you remember, this sheath did not come with a ferro rod holder. So, I also noticed that it doesn't look like it's waxed thread. So I have a feeling that eventually, after enough briars and enough rubbing up against, because that thread is proud of the leather. It does stick out. That's going to fail. Whereas if you look at the LT Right, that is definitely waxed. And from the looks of things, it might even be, no, it is machine stitched. It is slightly proud, but if you actually look close at it, you can see that they used a grooving tool to get those stitches to just sit into that leather just a little bit. So the top might fray. Now, I've had this knife for a couple of years now. My brother got this for me. I love this thing. And I've never had any issues with it. I carry it hunting. I carry it all over the place. Now, this knife, this BPS, is not to replace that knife. This knife is really something for $32 on Amazon Prime. That's what I paid for this, $32 on Amazon Prime. For me to try as a supplementary knife, also a high carbon steel knife. My LT Right is actually stainless steel. For some reason, that knife they offered in Scandinavian grind, only in stainless, or in saber grind with a micro bevel in the carbon. And I wanted the Scandinavian grind. I'm partial to Scandinavian grind for this type of knife. So there will be more videos of this to come. I'm going to put it side by side to, I wouldn't say some tests, but some normal daily tasks that I do. Splitting kindling, stuff like that, splitting down into little feather sticks. I have a TBS Grizzly also that I really enjoy using. And the Grizzly, we're going to do a little fit test right here. The Grizzly, some of you may know, yep, that is nice and snug. It's probably a bad idea. Shove it in my shoulder, probably. That is very snug. So they did a very good job on the fit. It fits right down in there. Fits down in there good. It's not, that is not coming out of there. Not until it gets broke in, anyways. That one thing I'm not sure I do like. That sits down in there quite a ways farther than the LT Right. But it's not terrible. I may cut that back just a little bit. But I'm gonna use it like this. I'm not gonna move anything till I get a good review on it. But I'm gonna put it, through its paces, through what I would do on a normal basis. I'm not out there batoning big pieces of wood all the time. Sometimes I baton a piece of wood just to split it down thinner to put it in the wood stove instead of trying to use a hatchet and cut my finger off or something. So excuse me. So yes, BPS. I'm not entirely sure what model this was off the top of my head, but I will put it in the text. But yeah, I'm kind of excited to use it. Honestly, I'll probably still carry the LT Wright as my normal belt knife. The Grizzly, I use that as an over-the-coat belt knife. So if I'm wearing a coat, your coat's a coat is almost to your knees. You're not pulling your coat open every time you need to get to your knife if you're out in the wilderness when it's cold out. It just doesn't work. So I use that as an over-the-coat belt knife. It's a 1/4 inch thick. You can chip through ice with it. You can cut chalk off a tree. You can, split kindling. You can pound it through. Whatever you need to do, baton it, whatever. That is high carbon steel, such as this one. That one is stainless steel. So I'm thinking of this as more as a secondary, put it in the console of the Jeep or the truck, or put it on a pack, or my falling belt, something like that, where I may not always have that knife or my other belt knife, but, still have a good, reliable knife available to me. The other thing is, too, is I'm actually looking for another or a better hunting knife. I had a nice little buck that had a little gut hook on there, and I'm not sure whatever happened to it. My brother got it for me. I loved that little knife. It was a perfect little knife. That this knife could replace that possibly, but we'll see how it goes. But that is the opening, the unboxing of that knife. Until I get this tripod and stand figured out, I'm not gonna do any cutting paper or anything like that to show you how sharp it is until I get the stand set up so I have both hands. But otherwise, that's it. I mean, that's where we're at. So, until next time, keep it between navigational beacons. Be good to everyone out there. You reap what you sow, and you get back what you give. So, until the next video, this is Matt, Mr. Rustford, Sir Watson, and the cat's around here someplace. See you in the next video.